Welcome to the ECE Classroom Podcast with your host, Susie Beghin. Inspiring early childhood educators every day. Hello and welcome to the ECE Classroom Podcast. My name is Susie Beghin and I'm the host of the show. Today I have a very special guest with me, Cameile Henry, from the company she co-founded called Strengthen Hands. She is an author of several books. Welcome to the show, Cameile.
Thank you so much for having me, Susie. I'm very excited to be here today.
So, Cameile, I'll let you introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about you and your background.
Well, this company, Strengthen Hands, is really about affirming and empowering young children. I really found that after COVID, so many children were struggling emotionally in terms of not having necessarily those social outlets that they normally have. And so how can they cope? How can they express themselves? I found that educators and parents were also having a difficult time in terms of supporting their children with their emotional needs. And so I thought, let's create some books. And so really my work has always been working with young children. Prior to my employment at Sheridan College, I worked with George Brown College in the lab schools for well over 12 years with young infants all the way to school age. I even did a little bit of cooking in between. And then I was employed with Sheridan College as a faculty member, program coordinator, and working with students to support them in their educational journey and their outcome of being an early childhood educator. So community events that I've been involved in, supporting children at different camps and so on. I just felt that let me try and do something to support them in a more tangible way.
Yeah. Well, emotional regulation is a huge topic, and I'm so happy to have you here to talk about this today. So let's kick it off. When we talk about emotional regulation, we're often thinking about, trying to calm children down, or perhaps, more in terms of what we as adults want to see from the behavior of children, right? As opposed to really diving into what are children's emotions, what are they going through, and how can we help them through those emotions. So I think this conversation today is really going to shed some light on maybe a different perspective we can take towards emotional regulation with children. So my first question to you is, what are some common signs that a child is struggling with their emotions? How can we as parents and as educators identify if we see that a child is struggling? What will be the signs that we see?
And I'm glad you're asking that, Susie, because I think we have to reframe the idea of emotional expression. I think sometimes people think, oh, they're just having an outburst and it's a tantrum, and we kind of dismiss it and want to push it off to the side. But I think one of the things that we need to understand is that children's emotional expression actually is a way of their communication. And even for us as adults, I mean, I cry happy tears, I cry sad tears, I cry when somebody scares me, right? So that is an outpouring of your emotions. It's part of your way of communicating how you're feeling within the moment. And what we often see for young children, and please let me categorize that, it was really, I'm thinking about children 3 to 10. So number one would be mood swings. If you notice that the child is like pretty okay in one moment, and then the next minute they're maybe really upset or angry, and then it kind of keeps on swinging. There's something going on there in terms of what is happening throughout their day that they might not be coping with in terms of what they're expressing and showcasing to you. Also, really keep in mind in terms of what is their emotional state and the calmness, that idea of calm. We have to think of emotional regulation in terms of matching the emotion that the child is experiencing within the experiences that are happening. I mean, I wouldn't want to take a child to an amusement park and it's a really exciting event and they're like, oh, this is very interesting. And they're very calm and stoic. I might say, what is going on? Even within that, it doesn't necessarily match the experience. So you might want to cue in and check with that. Oftentimes, even when children are really quiet, that is them expressing something too. And you might want to take a moment to really listen and pause and kind of see what is happening for the child within that moment, right? As to why they might be doing that. If they're also having difficulty concentrating in situations, they seem to be really, I guess the new term is squirrely, in the sense of jumping from one area to the other. In some cases, that's very common, especially if you're working with a toddler child. They kind of jump from areas and areas. But if they're not able necessarily to calm and focus in one space, if they're not even able to be there for a minute or two, then that is also something that they're trying to communicate to you. Maybe the environment is overstimulating. It's taking away from their level of concentration. And when we think about that, we also have to think about children have different reactions to stimulus. So even bright lights could be a bit overwhelming. Even sounds can be overwhelming. Even the way that we set up and decorate the room. Sometimes we think, this looks so pretty. Let's have a lot of colors and things hanging from the ceiling. Sometimes it's overstimulation for children, and it affects the way that they can regulate themselves. And so it's also taking time within our daily routines as parents and educators to really observe what is happening within the child, what is happening within the space that may contribute to the child's expressions of emotions. Also, change in sleep patterns. If the child is not sleeping, sometimes that is a difficult time. It might be an increase in anxiety because of situations, sometimes new situations that transpire do that. Also changes in appetite. They're not eating as much. Of course, there's growth spurts that children go through, but I'm just thinking these are little bits that sometimes when they combine together, give you an indication of what is happening for the child. You know, we're so compassionate and kind to others, but sometimes we don't put that same application to self. And I think if we take the time to be compassionate with ourselves, there might be things that are going on with us. Children are great at picking up our cues, fantastic at it. And so sometimes when you're not doing okay, there's something called emotional contagion where they might pick up your emotional state. And so even at times when we might be sad or more contemplating or stressed out at work, sometimes that stress and our emotions also trickle into them. In the same way, Susie, that even if I'm excited or happy about something and I'm doing the happy dance, you'll see children will be like, what's going on? You look so happy. I'm like, yeah, right? So they can pick up in the same ways. And that's also sometimes a way that gives a mood shift is that, you know, get happy yourself. Like put on some music, have your own little dance party and have a little fun. Why not do it on your way to school and the routine and the day? Why not put on some music? Or music is a great way to have children feel involved and less intimidated, a way that they can participate in their uniqueness. We don't always have to do the perfect dance, but we can always have a great time in our expression of that.
Yeah, that's some really good information. I like what you said about kind of being a detective, kind of really trying to figure out what's going on inside the child, you know, and it might be something like you said, something about the environment that might be affecting them. And you really have to be a detective to figure that out. You really have to closely look, what are the clues? What are the certain things that might be affecting them? And so that's good information for us as educators too, because a lot of times we might overlook certain things. We might just be looking, you know, this is just how the child is. You know, we might
Yes.
just say something like that, you know, the child is like this, but really we can change behavior. We can affect behavior, like you said, by our own emotions. Our own emotions affect the children as well, whether we're sad, happy, mad. It's going to affect them as well because it transfers. I really do believe that. So yeah, that's some good things to look for sure.
And Susie, as you're mentioning, like temperament does play a role. So it's really important to observe to kind of have an understanding of children's temperament, but also the idea, you know, when we're looking at children's behavior, I think sometimes people think, like you said, it's stuck. We can't change it. Well, yeah, you can. You have the opportunity in which to do so. And it's a matter of taking the time. So I think what we have to do is recognize that these skills the children are developing now is an investment that will help in their future. And I think if we recognize that they're still in the process of growing and really understand the brain for young children is not fully developed until they're in their 20s. And
Right.
so give them a time. Like, we're sitting here frustrated and yeah, but have we really thought the brain isn't fully developed? That 3-year-old who's throwing a tantrum on the floor, they're only 3. So I think if we also think about ways in which how we're supporting children, it will help to build that development within them. The repetition and how we respond also has an impact in terms of their emotional expression.
It's funny that you said about the 3-year-old with the tantrum, and I'm thinking, we don't develop till you said it in your 20s. I think it was 25. They say it's like pretty much fully developed. But
Yes.
even still, I won't say my age, but I'm a little old, much older, maybe double that. And I'm still working on my emotions. Like I haven't figured it all out either. Like, I've been in this earth a very long time and I'm
Yes.
still trying to figure things out. So, yeah, we have to be compassionate, like you said. We have to understand that these little ones, they've only been around for a very short time and they're still trying to figure things out, how their
Mm-hmm.
emotions work. I wanted to talk about your books. So you're an author, and I know that you've written a lot of books, particularly around this topic of emotional regulation, right? So how does storytelling play a role in helping children to manage emotions? Like, how do your books help?
So, really, the books were really created to affirm and empower young children. I actually started off with one book, How is Peter Feeling? And the book actually has blanks in it so that children can fill in the emotion of Peter's first day of school. And so, first days of school, I'm sure you can remember yours, Susie. I remember mine
Yes.
as like, where am I going? What am I doing? I know some children bounce in and they're like ready, bye. And I was like, but I was not one of those children. I was a
No,
little bit nervous.
I was
Yeah.
timid and yeah, it was difficult for me.
Yes. And the thing is, I think having so many times when I see children's books, it tells what the emotion is. This person is feeling sad, angry. And of course, that is needed so that children can and are able to develop their emotional literacy, which happens to identify what emotion you're feeling at the time. But I also wanted to have blanks filled in intentionally so that children could look at the emotional cues of Peter. We remember during COVID, we all wore these masks. And so
Right.
all you were seeing was eyes, but you weren't seeing mouths. You weren't seeing expressions that really help to give you those emotional cues of how people are feeling. So I thought if I leave blanks in, then what it does is it allows children to identify what the emotion that Peter's feeling, as well as which matches the situation, which goes back to self-regulation, right? Like he's in this situation, he's feeling scared, he's nervous, he bumped his head on the school bus, right? So what is that? And then also it allows us as educators and parents who are reading the book with the children to actually tune into what they think is happening for Peter and why. So it can create that conversation. And then from there, I really wanted to affirm children. So I wrote a book, ABCs of Affirmation. I had that one here with me, right? Which is really about affirming and empowering children with simple statements. I have Melanin in Me, which talks about the melanin that we all have in our skin, but also empowers children to have those conversations and have a level of compassion and understanding and knowing more about them. The book that you're seeing up top, Mina's Gift, is really about a mimic octopus who goes through this adventure of trying to make friends, but then making friends, he's actually trying to be like other sea creatures as opposed to embracing the uniqueness that's found within ourselves. And I think what it is just really recognizing the journey that children go on when as they're growing up and maturing. And I wanted to actually have books that really relate to their personal situations. So not only can they see themselves reflected necessarily within the depictions of the characters in terms of diversity that's found in racial diversity, exceptionalities in terms of physical disabilities and so forth. I wanted them to see themselves in the book so they can know that they are beautiful, valued, and loved for who they are. And so it just continued within the characters and the evolvement of all these books is really about different situations children go through. But then I took it another step, Susie. I decided, why not have crochet elements, which are unique within themselves? And just like children are unique, we are all unique in the sense of having that area so that once the book is closed, the message of the book still resonates with children. So, for example, the ABCs of affirmation, we have the cow that says on the stomach, I am enough, right? And then we also have an owl that says, I'm smart. And
I love
then
that.
I have a bear that says, I am strong. So all these elements kind of tie in, and it's the message, right? I think there's so much that we can provide through books and literacy, but then there's also the tangible components. And I think when I'm thinking about the teddy bear, it was, okay, I know there's children that like something tactile, that for young infants, even just holding on to something cuddly and soft to help them to regulate in situations that they might not feel as confident. So it empowers them. The book's messages empower them, but also the idea of having something that's concrete and tangible that I can take along with me so that even in difficult times, I can know and remember that I'm strong in these situations. Right?
Yeah, I love the connection that you made there between tangible objects and the books. I think literacy goes hand in hand with so many things that we do. And we
Yes.
can't just, say, oh, we're just doing storytelling right now. Storytelling is just storytelling, and it incorporates so much more. So incorporating it into the stuffed animals, I absolutely love that. Something that you said kind of struck a chord with me when you said that one of your books, you leave the emotion blank and you let children figure out what the emotion is based on the cues. Absolutely love that, especially after COVID. Like you said, we found a lot of children, didn't really understand social cues as much. We saw that in the daycares as well. And it's starting to change now again. But also, I was thinking autism or,
Yes.
people who have difficulty understanding social cues. Your book would be amazing for a child like that. Yeah. So that's really good.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you for that. It's really the idea of recognizing neurodiversity and the fact that there's spectrums, right? In terms of not being able necessarily to articulate or verbally being able to express our emotions, but being able to think about a situation that you might be in. Like, how do you feel going on the bus or transportation or something new on the first time? So even within the books, some of them are accompanied with workbooks that can be used. It's like almost like a teacher's aid or an educator's aid. So we have like reflection questions going into more information about what melanin is. So within my books, for example, even I love you more than strawberries. And, Susie, sometimes we think all families are the traditional family, right? It's husband, wife, and we know there's always these changes that are evolving in terms of what parents and families look like. But within I Love You More Than Strawberries, it's really a situation of an adoptive family situation. And I found there wasn't a lot of books that really spoke to that either. Sometimes children do question, do you love me? And I think that's a real conversation that happens in adoptive and foster family situations. And that's also my background in the sense I've adopted my son. And prior to that, I was a foster parent and I had over 20 children or more that has gone through my home or through my life that have touched me in varied ways. And so I found that there was always this sense of uncertainty. So even within the book, it goes through Tobias's day and really, his mother expressing to him, I love you more than all the stars are in the sky as he's going to his regular, bedtime routine. And so at the back of the book, one of the gifts that I've given, I guess it's because of my educational background, is also, talking about what is a chosen family and giving individuals, reflection questions so that they can take the book to the next step. And then also, there's an activity inside of the book as well as a coloring page. So when the child colors the book, then they actually now feel that this book is mine. This is a representation of me. It's something that I can hold on to because their work is actually in the book. And so
Yeah.
that's what I wanted to do, is how can we make these experiences that we're providing with children something that takes it to the next step beyond the pages of the book, but gives also children a sense of affirmation and ownership. This is yours. Nobody can color it like you, right? And let's celebrate that.
Yeah. We have something else in common. I'm also an adoptive parent. I had
Oh,
two boys, so I know exactly what you're talking about. There's all kinds of families out there. Yes, I love the idea and the messaging that you have within the book. So I'm definitely going to get copies of these books for my daycares. I love everything that you're saying so far. So, Cameile, I understand you also do workshops for parents and educators. Can you tell me a little bit about the workshops and how it relates to, your books and the whole idea of emotional regulation?
yes. Susie, I mentioned that I'm adoptive parent, and my son also has neurodiversity. So as an educator, I thought, what's going on? Like, I know I can take 10 toddlers to the grocery store and we're fine, right? I can take them to the park. I can take 24 preschoolers to the park. We have a fantastic time. What is going on? I have one child. And I'm like, what is happening? I'm not able to support him in the ways that I think he needs to be supported. When I got the diagnosis in terms of neurodiversity, I don't want to necessarily divulge, that's his privacy as well too. I found that there are some wonderful resources that are accessible and available to me as a parent to be able to support him better. And one of them was the Circle of Security, which helps to build attachment in young children. So how can I attach to him better in a stronger, more concrete way that is supportive to his individual needs? After taking the workshop, I said, I need to get trained in doing this. That's what I did, as well as Positive Discipline and all these organizations that I'm now linked with, Strong Hands, Strong Minds, and in terms of supporting children with stress and so forth. It has been quite a journey, but for me, an educational journey that has helped to really strengthen my advocacy for my son, as well as strengthen our relationship. And I thought, I can't just keep this contained to myself. I really want to share this with others so that they can benefit in unique ways. And so that's what I've done, is in terms of providing workshops that affirm and empower parents so that they in turn can affirm and empower their children. Areas of, identifying stress and really identifying your own stress. There's also workshops that I do in terms of understanding children's understanding and concept of race. That was actually the first workshop that I did. And it wasn't only doing it here in Canada, where we're having some social justice issues in regards to the concept and ideas of race, but I also went to the States. I went to Montgomery, Alabama, and spoke about children's racial understanding, because sometimes people feel, oh, they're 2 years old. They don't know about race. Everybody loves everybody the same. And I'm like, no, actually, children can have anti-bias behavior. They can distance themselves. They can say things that are inappropriate and hurtful. In the same way they can bully people about their race. And so it was really having this idea and being able to share this understanding of children's racial understanding of race, which has led now, as much as I have all these children's books that I've done, we're actually in the process of writing a textbook. It's with a publication company in the US, and we're actually expanding this issue and to heighten awareness, not only for parents, but for upcoming educators, pre-service educators, as well as, the one thing about this work that I'm doing is that I'm finding it's touching on so many different areas. So I'm actually speaking at social work conferences. And so where they're able to support children in different ways. And I think it's really the idea that we can come together to holistically support children and in ways of enhancing our personal understanding so that we can then be able to support children better. So the workshops have ballooned into different diversified areas, and it's really exciting to be a part of that. I love what I do, and being able to connect with community, to be able to share
I just love your passion. I love how you came about doing what you're doing, and you're doing amazing work. And I can't wait to see this
Thank
textbook
you.
because it's definitely something that's needed. I don't know anything like that exists, and it's definitely some research and some good information that we as educators and even as parents can use to help form children in a way that's, like you said in the very beginning, compassionate, understanding, and most of all, inclusive, right? So
Yes.
thank you so much for being here today. I wanted to quickly ask you before we end off, how can people get in touch with you? So what's your
Oh,
website? How can people reach out and how can they get your books as well?
well, all the books are available through Amazon, but you can definitely contact me at www.strengthenhands.com, which is our website. We have a monthly newsletter that we give for free, so people can always stay connected with concepts that I always research and are excited to share. I have an Instagram, so it would be lovely to have more people join us on our Instagram, and where I share insights. There might be small tidbits as well as places where I'm going to be sharing my workshops. And even if people wanted to book a workshop, it's always great to have people connect there. And so my Instagram handle is at Strengthen Hands. And we also have a YouTube page. So Strengthen Hands, it's at Strengthen Hands EDU, which is our YouTube page. And in there, sometimes what we do is take aspects of the book and we really create short animated clips for children to be able to look at maybe when they're going to bed, might help with that bedtime routine, areas of talking about gratitude and affirmation and so forth. So it'd be great to have people connect. We're all about strengthening hands so that we can strengthen our community one person at a time. So it'd be great to have people connect with us.
Okay, well, I will put all those links in the comments of this episode so people can check out your website and your YouTube channel and your Instagram, and hopefully go on Amazon and purchase some books as well because I see some amazing books. And thank you for sharing everything and all the work that you're doing. It's really much needed, as I said. Thanks again for being on the show today, Cameile. It was a wonderful chatting with you.
Thank you, Susie. It's great to connect. Looking forward to more opportunities where we can collaborate.
Absolutely. Okay, so I'm back to talk a little bit more about emotional regulation. That was such a fantastic session with Cameile. You can just feel her energy and her passion for this topic about emotional regulation. In the early years, it's so important that we teach children how to express, understand, and regulate their emotions. It's just as important as teaching them academics, ABCs, one, two, threes. It's just as important as teaching them social skills. And it's just as important as teaching them to tie their shoes or participate in physical activity. Emotional regulation is key to living a good life. If we can teach children emotional regulation in the early years, they're more likely to have better mental health when they grow up to be adults. They're more likely to be able to handle stress, anxiety, and challenges in life and develop coping skills and develop empathy themselves. One of the big themes of today was compassion and learning to observe children. As early childhood educators, we're constantly observing children. We're constantly watching what they do, what they like, what their interests are. But we also need to be watching for emotions. We need to be watching for the signs that Cameile mentioned that children might be dysregulated. Perhaps it might be that the emotion doesn't match with the activity. She mentioned, in a happy activity, children are generally excited. So if the emotions don't match with the activity, perhaps that's a sign that there's something else going on. Cameile talked about some signs that children are struggling with their emotions, in particular mood swings, difficulty sleeping, difficulty concentrating, or perhaps even just being quiet when you know that normally they're quite talkative. I also enjoyed our discussion about storytelling and how books can help children to understand and express their emotions and develop that sense of empathy. I think books help children to understand things like emotions, which are difficult to explain with just words. Books help to express our thoughts and our feelings in different ways. And storytelling definitely is a way to get children to understand their emotions and how to express them and how to regulate them. I hope you'll check out some of Camille's books and her new textbook coming out later this year. Regulating emotions is something we do throughout life. It's not something we're going to master by the age of 6 years old. We're constantly developing throughout our whole lives. Let's help children with emotional regulation so that they can have the best start in life. Thanks for tuning in to the ECE Classroom with Susie Beghin. For more information, you can visit our website at www.susiebeghin.com. Remember to rate, review, and subscribe to our podcast so you can stay up to date on the latest episodes. Thanks for listening.